Delighted to be joined now by former Conservative Party leader, Sir Iain Duncan Smith. A very good morning to you.
Oh, morning, Julia.
Thank you very much for joining us. There's lots to talk about. Can I just start with a question? I'm sure I've put this to you in the last week. I think I've asked you a million times. Are you going to be one of the next defections to reform?
No, I'm expecting reform to defect to me, actually, at some point. Not stock and barrel. But so far, they've been against that because I'm a member of the Conservative Party.
Have they ever approached you in that sort of subtle in the canteen sort of way?
Of course, I've had different approaches, but I just laugh it off. This is not... I don't think this is the way to go about it. My personal view is that we face a very difficult situation looking across the whole of politics at the moment. There are 4, maybe even 5 parties on the left now, very extreme in some cases. They would no doubt at the next election come together immediately to form some kind of leftist platform. And that would leave basically a problem here on the Conservative side of the platform. And I think simply say to everybody, really all we ever do with this division at the moment is make sure that the left gets in. And that's what's going to happen if we're not careful. So I think these things will settle over the next year or so. And I think we have to be sensible about it.
Isn't that what Robert Jenrick is counting on? They will settle, but they'll settle in Reform's favour, not the Tories' favour. And he thinks the Tories are finished. I mean, given our interviews, not just off the record, behind the scenes, you publicly have probably disagreed with more Conservative Party and Conservative government standpoints than I think anyone else.
Well, to be fair, no matter who's in government, I seem to be in opposition. So it's not. I've reached the stage really in life, I suppose, where I don't think I should hide what I think about something. I want to be clear about.
Did you used to have to do that?
Sorry?
Did you used to have to do that? Because should you be in a party where you have to hide?
Well, the way the political parties are formed, when you first get in, you absolutely have to toe the line. And discipline and supporting your government or whatever is very important. But there are times when, if something is important, not on anything, but something is important, like China or where it happens to be, on Chagos, you come out and say, I don't agree with you, and you're prepared to have a debate. That makes it, therefore, worthwhile to be in politics, because you're there for ideas and debate. But, all along the way, I think the Conservative Party, I believe this is why I'm still there, is the party that can form a proper functioning government. And my worry is that if we go on like this at the moment, we're going to end up with a sort of mess. And I've looked at Reform's councils, and the councils that they've had have all been pretty much a disaster. They've come in claiming great things. They're going to sweep away, do another sort of...
Well, they haven't even been in for a year, have they, most of them?
Yeah, but many of them are now piled up huge debts and real problems. I mean, look at Kent, for example, where the leader is now swearing and shouting at many of her own online. And so, no, my general view is, look, we did get things wrong, absolutely. I was one of those during COVID that was opposed to the perpetual lockdowns.
You're an absolute hero for many of my audience for that.
I'm angry because having got the welfare budget down by 32 billion while I was there, instituted universal credit, which got people on in that crisis period of COVID in a way that the legacy benefits wouldn't have done. What we did was we released all the checks and balances, and because now we're paying the cost of that. So those are the things I was critical of, and I remain critical, and I put forward alternative ideas how to change it.
Let's just say next time round it's Reform they're in, they've got a majority government, they call you up, Nigel Farage says, you understand welfare better than anyone, you actually achieved something in welfare when you were in office, I'd like you to come and run welfare. Would you do it?
As I said to you earlier on, no matter who's in government, I tend to be in opposition.
So, okay.
I will guide my tongue very carefully.
Okay, just finally, do you think Andrew Rosindell, who's a Shadow Foreign Office Minister, MP for Romford, do you think he was a big loss? He's apparently resigned from the party, joined Reform over the issue of the Chagos Islands.
I'm sorry he's gone. I'm not quite certain why he thinks he had to go over Chagos, because the member of the House of Lords representing Reform did exactly what the Conservatives did in there. They voted on getting this regret motion, which is about the most powerful motion they can have. It will come back to the House of Lords after the government gets rid of that, and that is the opportunity then to vote lock, stock and barrel against the Chagos bill.
All right. Let me ask you about international affairs, though, because Keir Starmer had a press conference this morning, a couple of hours ago. Didn't say very much. He was criticising people with sound bites. There seemed to be a lot of sound bites, something about active government, steady at home, engaged abroad. He did say that Donald Trump's threats over Greenland were completely wrong, and he said that the security of Greenland matters, and that the principle that cannot be set aside is that Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and to the people of Denmark, and that right is fundamental. But we didn't have any promise of any retaliation, any work. You know, it's going to be dialogue, we're told. Why do you think, as one of our callers has just pointed out, this is Mike who called in. Why do you think that Keir Starmer is so concerned with Greenland and apparently this threat from China and Russia as well, which is what Donald Trump is justifying his seizure he proposes of Greenland on, when he's about to give, possibly as early as tomorrow, go ahead for the Chinese to have a super spying mega embassy just across the river from me, right next to some of my most vital communication cables that basically control our economy?
Well, first of all, as you know, I've been opposed to this Chinese embassy since the very moment that it was first touted, and certainly I've opposed it doesn't matter whether the Conservatives or Labour on this, they're wrong. China is a threat. It is our most serious threat. It should be in the upper tier of FIRS, the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme. That would then define it as a threat, and we wouldn't therefore be giving them this embassy. I mean, imagine giving the Soviet Union during the Cold War an embassy right by this cabling, right in the heart of London, right opposite the Tower of London, such that they can actually dominate communications all over central London, including that which goes to the security service. And I don't agree with anyone that says it's all right, they can cope. No, they always say they can cope because the government asks them to do that. They won't be able to cope. And they said the same about Huawei, and we campaigned to show that Huawei was a threat, and finally they caved in, and actually the security services said, no, we didn't really think we could cope. So the reality is this is a disaster. I had a big campaign with my colleagues. I set up Interparliamentary Alliance on China. We've now got Labour Party members as well in this. The point is we had a big demonstration outside the embassy on Saturday. Kemi came to speak at it. Others spoke too from different parties. The main point is we are by and large united against this, and the government is only doing it because they're so desperate to get China on side to give them some ghastly trade arrangement. And all that will happen then is they'll dump all their overproduced batteries, electric cars, solar arrays, wind farms, many of which are made by slave labor, and many of which are subsidized against the WTO rules by their central bank. So they'll kill our own industry here, flat bank, and it'll be disaster. So my answer is they've got to get tough. I understand the White House through the national, and I can't remember which one it is now, has actually complained to the government directly, and they have said that they don't think this is a good idea. So the government now has to rethink, and I see that the Secretary of State has pushed it back. So it's not, I gather, going to happen on Wednesday or tomorrow. I saw that she's pushed it back for further consideration.
But it's been delayed again. Really it was supposed to be December and then January and then, Yeah,
it's a disaster. It shouldn't happen, and it will open us up. There's going to be 200 more personnel in that location, and they are basically going to be, under diplomacy, they're going to be spies. And so the whole process is a disaster. Many of the other Five Eyes have complained, I'm told, about this. So places like Australia, Canada, other places, I'm told, have actually said, well, they're worried about this location. So they should be. It's a disaster, and it's a historic site, and there are 200 British citizens living on the site, and nothing has happened to help them at all by the government. They're just cast into outer darkness.
It is utterly as perplexing, although, of course, it was a Conservative government that sold them the site. That was madness as well. But it is utterly perplexing that anyone thought this was a good idea. This is as perplexing as the Chagos Islands decision. Why do you think all these decisions have been made? Because we're told this is about the economics. As you say, I mean, the Chinese aren't going to offer us some super-duper deal. They've been trading with the Australians who put their foot down with them. They have to trade. They need to sell us stuff. That's how their economy works. Why on earth the last Tory government, why, Chagos, why, on selling the embassy site, and this government on this, why are they so supine when it comes to China?
The Foreign Office. I have to tell you that I think the Foreign Office has been wrong on so many things, and they're wrong on this. And they advised the last government, and they've advised this government, that they need to give the Chinese this embassy. In fact, if you dig into this, the real reason is they want to rebuild their own embassy in Beijing. And China has essentially said to them, you won't be allowed to do that unless we get our embassy. So there's a bit of blackmail going on there. Secondly, I also understand the Chinese have often cut off the water supplies to the embassy in Beijing as another sort of bullying threat.
And we give in to that. And everyone's complaining about Donald Trump.
I know, and you give way, once you give way to these people, then all that happens is they grab more. And that is exactly the problem right now with this embassy. So, we are acting like cowards.
Okay, so what?
We should say no.
Are we acting like cowards when it comes to Donald Trump and his threats to Greenland? Should Keir Starmer do more?
Well, first of all, I think it's right to say that threatening to take over Greenland like that, regardless, is the wrong move. It's the wrong move to an ally. It's a wrong move because of NATO. It's also a wrong move for a democracy that is the key component in our resistance against totalitarian states around the world, which are growing like mad at the moment. So we need America to be selling the message of freedom, and therefore threatening Greenland is a stupid exercise, I think. What they should be doing is recognize if it's a threat thereafter, and there is a threat to the northern areas, in the polar regions, that then they have the right already by agreement to be able to put as many troops as they like and many sites as they like in Greenland. Greenland has handed that over to them years ago during the Cold War. So that's not the issue. If you're worried about a threat, you have every right, America, to put whatever you like in Greenland. I think it's really more to do with the minerals. And I think this is the issue. There are very important minerals lying, I gather, underneath the ice cap in Greenland, and as more of that gets a bit more exposed, and they would like to have that. Mostly what they call rare earth minerals, which are the things that make the little...
And which China mostly controls. But is that worth the risk to basically disintegrating the Western alliance of democratic nations under NATO? Is it worth risking that to get to those minerals?
No, because we could do a deal. I mean, the deal should be that Western nations should invest in Greenland to produce those minerals, and if necessary, to produce them and function them through the industrial process that allows them to become usable items that can be used in telecommunications. You don't need to own the island to have an agreement that allows you to access that. And I think the UK should be part of that. We desperately need our own supply, as does the rest of NATO. So that's how I would do it. I'd say, look, we'll withdraw on this, but let's come to an agreement that allows us all to invest for our collective security, and I think that would be the right way to do it.
So, Duncan Smith, always good to talk. She covered a lot of ground there. Former Conservative Party leader, not about to defect at 2 Thank you very much, Steve. Just a brief word from Benjamin Butterworth, listening to all of that. I mean, this is the thing, the military bases. It's not that's not an issue. They can do that anyway. Do a deal on these minerals. I mean, here's the thing. Maybe it wasn't a good idea for America and Europe to allow China to basically buy up the world's minerals, which is what they've been doing. They haven't got them at home, which they've been buying them across Africa and South America, and we've all just sat by going, oh, carry on as you were. What a surprise. Look, economic disaster.
The problem and the risk is clearly real, but this isn't the answer. Surely the rational answer, and Sir Iain implied this there, is that if you've got Greenland with all these natural resources that are becoming accessible and valuable, then why don't you use that to fund the rise in defence spending for NATO that everyone agrees that we need?
Well, except they belong to Denmark and Greenland. I mean, we wouldn't be,
Except that would be a rational decision for our shared risk, because, as you say, Denmark can't defend it if someone comes for it, so why not make that the deal, that funds our NATO costs?
Interesting. Benjamin, thank you very much.